from the general fund is pay increase. We have everyone budgeted at 2%, save one employee in the fiscal department where we've budgeted 5% for that person. There'll be a promotion on a track to a more supervisory role for Heather Hawk. She is our most senior payables person. She serves as backup to Denny Winter for a lot of functions. The department up there is processing the same work from 2010 within, say, 1% of items we enter, 1% of entered items with one less person than we were doing in 2010. So 5 people used to do the same amount of work in 2010 as do today in 2014 within 1%. So they have stepped up, they've done the work. The staff up there was all held the line last year on the raise, and we recognize the additional work that has been given to Heather as part of these processes, and would like to reward her accordingly. So, other questions that the board might have from our general fund presentation?
Is there anything that comes to your attention in this?
Not
our attention?
The one thing, and it's probably really not material, is, and just looking from last year to this year, it was just there was a significant shift in purchase services, but it was really between org codes, and if there was a
right, and I think that's just what is appropriated.
Yeah, it was just put in at the 4.0 level, and it should have been the 1040.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
And that again was just for the audit cost.
Yeah, the other questions I had already got addressed.
thank you. You had some detail on our audit costs through the years too. Yeah. No. So if you look back from, say, 2009, which was not a great year for audit costs, we were at about $136,000. 2010, $137,000. Going into 12, we were at about $104,000. So we've seen those costs come down pretty significantly, in part due to, and we've talked about this before, moving from a high-risk entity to a low-risk entity. That means less testing, so less work for the state auditors. But inasmuch the partnership that we have between our office, the state auditor's office, and Ray and Associates, which does our gap conversion and helps with some CAFR works too. We've just got a pretty good system going, and so again, the results from the audit standpoint have spoken for themselves. So.
Well, in the fairness of love and war, since I have asked every other
Yes,
elected
ma'am.
official, I'm
And
going to have to put you
department head,
on the spot there, Mr.
Sure.
Auditor.
Yeah.
Looking at our pay periods from 1 through 27, I see that there were raises given last year anywhere from 1% to 13%. In the example of Dennis Winter, since all these things are public, he got a 13% raise last year and will get a 2% this year.
Correct.
And then you have like a Heather Hawk, who you are now advocating for a 5%. She was given a 3% last year, so now she's up 8%. What happened to our 2% guideline?
And again, we have to make the staffing decisions to keep our talent here, and I think I'll talk to, and Anita can talk more specifically to that later on. When we get into some of our higher level, more technical positions, we need to keep up with the market in some sense. And if you look at the work that Denny does in the advising of all the other fiscal officers around the county, many are paid much, much more than he is. And we need to keep that in mind, because he was offered other positions in the county, and the move was in in part strategic to keep him happy and to keep him here, because I think the board can agree that he is an invaluable resource to the county, and he has worked very hard. And cutting from 5 to 4 and the work still getting done, Denny's very much a part of that. And to the point about Heather, she is too. She's done everything we've asked her to do and more. And that additional responsibility needs to be recognized financially.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
But I still see that in other cases, it went above the 2%. There was a lot at 3. And I don't know why he would be listed, but Robert Davis from Weights and Measures is listed as a non-general fund, and that is not correct. Am I correct? It's
No,
still
he is a general fund, yeah.
It says not general fund.
Okay.
And he went up 14%. Again,
Right.
I'm just getting back to the 2%.
Sure.
Because as I have said, and I will continue to say, the man on Prospect Avenue, Southwest in Canton, Ohio, does not understand the difference between enterprise funds.
Sure.
He doesn't understand the difference between non-general, general. All he understands is that he did not get a raise last year, or maybe a minimal raise, and county employees are getting higher raises. I'm giving you the same
Sure.
sermon that I will give to
No.
every single official that comes
Absolutely.
in here, because we are only funding at 2%. End of discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and on Mr. Davis, he has been employed by the county for about 5 years. He's our junior in the department, Weights and Measures inspector, with Nick being our senior inspector, if you will. And I felt Rob was really making entry-level wages for the responsibility that he has. They operate independently and without flaw, both he and Nick, in often very adverse conditions, and many times on Saturdays and Sundays to meet public demand. And that was in recognition of all the responsibility that he carries, and especially when you compare to other counties, he particularly was grossly underpaid. When you look at our counterparts in Summit County, what they do, grossly underpaid for what he did. But I respect very much the board's decisions and the sentiments that the board conveys. I am the fiscal officer for this county. I take it as seriously, if not more so, than anybody else. So I understand that, and I hope the justification is sufficient for the decisions that we've made.
Even though those salaries are paid out of REA, did it still come out at 2%? Did you average that out? Because there were some pretty high.
I did not do the math on those. I would be
Again,
just glancing at it.
Just as a
surprised.
reminder, it's still taxpayers' dollars.
No, it is. And again, we had, there were 2 that I know were a little more significant there. All in, all in transparency. John Oates got a raise. Again, John's role is to work with all the township and village and municipal fiscal officers, and all with the school treasurers too. Before we gave him the raise, there wasn't a school treasurer in the county all school treasurers in the county made at least twice what John did. And he's the one coordinating all their budgets. So there was some notion of fairness that needed to be done with him. Also, we had an employee leave that was not replaced, and he took on a chunk of the work that she did too. Probably about 30% of her job was in support of John, and he absorbed all the work that had been assigned to the employee related to that. Beth Tournay also got a raise that was in excess of the 2% last year. And again, she is largely responsible for the implementation of all property tax functions within the office, and brought her up to par with other people in the office that share similar responsibility. She, out of anyone in our office, probably bears the brunt of all statutory responsibility for reporting and programming implementation. If the code says this is when we shall do this, she's the one that it is getting done by that point in time. She has a very large staff that reports to her too, and we were starting to creep up to some thresholds that just the parity for the responsibility just wasn't there. So she's in line, and John are in line with a mid-level manager like Denny now too. They're all at about the same pay level, and I think commensurate with their responsibility.